we're now entering the fourth week of the war, and the situation looks as grave as it did from the beginning, as the war is spreading into other countries from Iran, which was the original target of the Israeli-American attack. And not only have we seen the war spreading, but also the target set has increased. So Israel recently attacked the South Pars gas field that belongs to Iran, and that is part of the larger gas field that Qatar also shares. And if this really spins further out of control in the coming days and weeks, then first of all, we face a huge global crisis. But as we enter this fourth week, the war can go in two ways. Of course, it can get worse or it can end, or come to a place where none of these attacks would happen. And that is, I think, a decision for the Trump administration, which launched this war. And if you listen to Trump, you have to be careful because what he says doesn't always make sense, and he often contradicts himself. But it is in his hands to unilaterally call an end to the hostilities, and then we have to see how that plays out in the Middle East, of course. Frankly, anything could happen in this war, and certainly when it comes from a president who is very ill-informed about the realities on the ground, who has very poor advice from the people around him, who are all naysayers, and so or are supporting the Israeli war effort, which has different objectives from the American ones, go much wider, go into regime change in Iran, and so we have to be very careful. Anything could happen. But President Trump has spoken about maybe putting troops on Khark Island in order to control the oil export infrastructure of Iran. If he were to do that, I think it is like scoring an own goal in football, in the sense that this would, of course, choke off Iranian oil exports. But that also means that these exports do not go onto the global market, and therefore they will contribute to a further rise in oil and gas prices, which is already very, very unprecedentedly high. And so I think it would be completely counterproductive for the United States to try to do that. We should be careful not to be confused by the surface talk or sort of the latest events dominating the news cycle, because actually the core issue for both Israel and the United States is the presence of highly enriched uranium buried under the rubble in Iran, under the Fordo nuclear plant and in another location in Isfahan. And this is what they want to retrieve. This was also the subject of the negotiations that were taking place at the end of February before Trump decided to attack. And so we could see, for example, a ground effort by special forces to get that material out of Iran, because the fear is that as long as Iran has access to this it's like 440 kilograms of highly enriched uranium, it could revive its nuclear program very easily at some point after the war. The Strait of Hormuz, of course, is important because it drives up the high price of oil, but the only way to stop the blockade of Hormuz is to actually end the war. There is no way to secure passage for commercial vessels through the straits, because it takes only one little gunboat from the Iranian side to scare every commercial enterprise off from sending ships through that narrow channel. And it is, of course, for Israel also about regime change. But regime change doesn't take care of the buried highly enriched uranium. And so I think that is the core issue. If and when there is a resolution, either by military means or by diplomatic ones, then we can see a different way forward. What matters is the price of consumer goods in the United States, the price of gasoline at the tank, at the pump, the gas station. It's the price of diesel for trucking, and it's the price of kerosene for air travel. These will affect the American economy tremendously. That is something to look for. That may produce the pressure that will end the war. The other thing is, at the military level, there's also apparently, but it's not entirely clear, a growing shortage of interceptor missiles that the United States can provide to Israel. And if that is the case, then they cannot effectively defend themselves against Iranian missile attacks, as long as Iran has access to missiles, of course, and missile launchers. So these are the two things I would look out for. That may end up determining when the war will end, but I'm making no predictions one way or another.